I found myself in a funk earlier today, this morning. For whatever reason, you wake up on the wrong side of the bed sometimes. And if I'm being completely honest with you, and you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to be completely honest with you, because the reason I started this podcast, the reason I started creating content all those years ago, was that I wanted to give a authentic, behind the scenes look at what it looks like to actually build a business, what goes into it on a day-to-day basis, the highs and the lows. And it's been a lot of fun to share that journey, because there's been, over the last 5 years, far more highs than there have been lows. About 5 months ago, though, my life kind of got turned upside down. I got an email that changed overnight how I perceived the health of one of my businesses. And it turned out that my partner had been misleading me, had been lying to me about the performance of the business. And as I dug into it, a lot of cockroaches came scurrying out into the light. And the last 5 months have been incredibly difficult as a result. Difficult because dealing with this feeling of betrayal from somebody very close to me, feeling like a failure, feeling the shame that comes from building a thing and seeing it fail. And a lot of the difficulty that you will experience as an entrepreneur is that you feel alone as you go through these tough times. There's nobody there that sit, next to you and pat you on the shoulder and say it's going to be all okay, because you chose this path for yourself. You chose to embark on this journey, and you knew it was going to be difficult. You knew that there was going to be no guarantee that it would work out. And yet here you are, because you value being the one who's responsible, being accountable for the results in your life. And that just means that the flip side of that is that sometimes things are going to go wrong, and you're going to lose, and you're going to fail. And that's not weakness. That's just life. You can do everything right and still lose. And so I've been struggling with this as we navigate trying to save this business, to realizing that there is no saving it, and that it's going to crater into the ground, and knowing that there's a lot of people who are involved in this business, both employees, investors, that are going to get hurt in the process. And it's something that you don't realize maybe early on in the journey. When you first step into your entrepreneurial journey, you're like, I am going to take this risk, I'm going to take this chance, and I'm going to build this thing. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. I'll go back to square one. I'll rebuild. I'll try it again, right? But as you're more successful, there's more people that are counting on you, relying on you. So when you fail, it doesn't just hurt you, it hurts more people. And so I've been navigating this and doing the best that I can to try and define the path forward. And I'll be honest, it's difficult and it's dark, and there's a lot of negative emotions that kind of bleed into your day-to-day life. And I want to share this with you, because when that happens, the tendency is to go into yourself, to hide it from everybody, your loved ones, your friends, your family. If you're a content creator, to put on a face and pretend like everything's okay, right? But I chose, in sharing my journey with you, that I was going to share the good parts and the bad parts, and try to do that as authentically and open as possible. And in this episode today, I want to share with you, not just, telling you about all the things that are going wrong and all that stuff, but I want to share with you one of the most powerful tips that I have for reframing in your mind and changing how you feel in the moment when you start to go down that death spiral, and you start to feel sad, you start to feel depressed, you start to feel overwhelmed, and all those things that will inevitably come on your entrepreneurial journey. You have to have the ability to remain poised, and the ability to turn that downward slide into something more positive, or at least halt the momentum, right? Because momentum is one of the most powerful forces in business and in life. It's either carrying you in the right direction or it's carrying you in the wrong direction. So, and I was experiencing that this morning when I was coming back. I just got my hair cut, right? And I was, for whatever reason, sitting there in the chair getting my haircut. It gives me more time to think, more time to sit in my mind, right? And when I'm moving, I'm going, and I'm doing things, there's not always so much time to stop and reflect. But sitting there, I didn't really have anything else to do, and I was just forced to stop and reflect. And I kind of got sad. I kind of got in my head a little bit, kind of got low energy. And it's funny how when you start to feel sad, it affects your physiology, right? So the tip that I want to share with you, and the way that I was able to halt that downward spiral almost instantly, because the thing is, like, as you improve in this game of self-improvement, right? It's not that these things, that you stop feeling them. It's not that you stop feeling negative emotions. It's just that you get better at recognizing them and then stopping them sooner, right? And pivoting towards a more advantageous mood, let's say. But it never really goes away. And when I went into that kind of lull and started kind of getting down, I immediately went back to this idea that your psychology follows your biology. This quickest way to turn your mood, your energy, if you're in that low state, if you're in that negative place, is to recognize that you are a spiritual being having a biological experience. Your perception of reality is occurring through this, 5 inches between your ears. You're processing all this information and your brain is rendering it in your mind. And then it's being translated through chemical reactions and through electrical inputs into your physical reality. And so when you just pull back from that and you realize, okay, I'm a spiritual being, have a biological experience, you can change that psychology that you're feeling, that negative mood, that downward spiral, all those things. You can stop that by just turning your biology in your favor. And the easiest way that I found to do this is by changing the story that you're telling yourself in the moment, right? The story, we talk about this all the time because it's so true. Story is the source code of the human experience. It's how you process the universe. It is the program through which that universe is rendered in your mind. And so when you tell yourself the story that you suck, you're low energy, you just don't have the motivation, then that becomes the reality. Your body manifests that, and then you have a hard ass time getting up and going and doing the work. But when you tell yourself the story that you are abundant, that you have the energy, that you have the discipline, that you don't need momentum to get up and go do the work because you're excited to be alive and to have the opportunity, then that becomes the reality and your body starts to react differently. And as the biology starts to move in the positive direction, your psychology will be tugged alongside with it. And so that's been the most important, most profound and impactful lesson that I've been, keeping forefront of my mind over these last 5 months as we've navigated these difficult, tumultuous times, is just take care of the biology, the psychology will follow. And a lot of that stems from the story that you just tell yourself in that moment about that biological reaction that you're having, right? Because when you're depressed and you're sad, it's really easy to think that this is the end of the world. It's as bad as it's ever going to get. It's never going to get better. It's never going to change, right? That becomes your worldview. But you can demonstrably prove that that's false by looking back in your life at other times when you felt that way and realized it wasn't the end of the world. You are here, right? You've made it through 100% of your bad days. All of them. You survived them. You are here by default. And so you can survive this too. And you can do that by saying, you know what? It's not actually that bad. I have the ability at an instant to change my biology. And as a result, I can change my psychology. It can change how I feel. Now, that's not necessarily going to be a permanent change, but as you get better at this, the better, the more able you are to stay in that kind of peak biological state, the more you feel good. And as a result, it becomes like this virtuous cycle. But when you're going through those tough times, allow yourself to feel that, but don't let yourself stay there. Like, sit with it, process it, and then you have to have a way of releasing it. And for me, that today was changing the story, changing the script, the program that I plugged into my brain to say, this is what this means. Just because I'm low energy doesn't mean that I can't show up and still do the work. Right? I'm the type of person who shows up even when I'm low energy. That can be the story that you tell yourself. And the reality is this is crazy that people that we're not taught this as children, is that there's really only 2 types of beliefs. There's limiting beliefs and there's empowering beliefs. Nothing else. There's beliefs that are moving you away from your greatness or they're moving you towards your greatness. There is nothing else. Nothing else. And those beliefs are nothing more than the story you tell yourself. It's just a story. And we know that those beliefs don't necessarily even have to be true. Limiting beliefs, all the time we tell ourselves, oh, I suck, I can't do this, nobody loves me. We tell ourselves that. And we know that's just not true. It's a fictional story that we are playing in our minds. And we know that. However, for whatever reason, people are so resistant to acknowledging, well, the empowering beliefs, those empowering stories, they also don't have to be true. And they can be just as impactful. And it's okay for us to be our biggest critic, but not to be our biggest cheerleader. And that's fucked up, right? Because as soon as you realize that you have the ability to take those limiting beliefs, those limiting stories, and completely rewrite them and change and flip the script and say, no, this is my power. This is moving me forward. Even if it's not true in the big T truth sense, it's still moving you forward in a positive direction versus moving you in a negative direction. And so fuck true stories. Tell yourself the story that's going to move you towards your greatness. Any other story that you allow into your brain is unwelcome. Let it go. Get rid of it, because you are the author of your story. You get to make it whatever you want it to be. Don't get locked into thinking that it has to be true. Fuck true. Just go be you. So that's going to do it for me. Just wanted to share. See you guys in the next episode.